So I'm really, really excited to be meeting my next guest on the Leading Talks program of 21 international speakers. Um, my guest is Dr. Troy Hall. He's a best-selling author. He's founder of Cohesion Culture, and he's been voted Talent Retention Expert of the Year, as well as being a Brains Global 500 top entrepreneur. So quite a CV, and I'm very, very excited to hear more from him about each and all of those things, and I'm sure lots more. So Dr. Troy, welcome, and thank you for taking the time.
Well, it is so great to be here. And if I were any better, I think I'd be you.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I've got some catching up to do there, Dr. Troy. But I must tell the audience that it's been a long road getting to here, hasn't it? Because we had all sorts of connection problems and technical problems, but we persevered, and here we are. I'm delighted to say. So it makes it even better.
It does.
You've been in Italy. I hear you had a wonderful time there, and I envy you. How long were you there for?
We were there for 30 days.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes.
Business or pleasure, or a combination?
A combination of both, which is the best way to make it work.
Indeed it is. Well, I'd love to hear more about that. But before we get into that, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your journey in and before the leadership space. So it's at your own pace. So start wherever you like.
Well, for those individuals who might be watching, do not let the hair color fool you, but I have been involved in a work environment since 1974.
Wow.
I know, really, yeah, like hold on. So we could go back a long way, but for me, I really have been involved in leadership my entire life. It started when I was 12 years old. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. We lived in a small rural town in West Virginia, sort of a forgotten coal mining town. As a matter of fact, this particular area was so poor that the train company came and pulled up the tracks. So that just goes to show what it was like.
Which means nobody wanted to go there or leave anymore. So.
No, wanted to be there. So I was really thrust into leadership very early on. My job was taking care of my mom while my dad went to work. Right. Because when you're in an economically depressed area, an area that did not have a lot of educational opportunities, like there was no library, the elementary school went to the sixth grade for us in the U.S., and there were only 11 students in the school.
Good Lord. Did you have siblings, Dr. Troy?
Repeat that?
Did you have siblings, or were you the only child?
Yes. So my sister was 9 years older, but her situation was that she'd really run away from the home, so we had no contact with her during that time. My brother is 3 years younger, and so he was staying with friends that my parents knew, so that I didn't have to worry about watching a sibling. So my responsibility for that summer, in between the 6th and 7th grade, was to really care for Mom and to make sure that she could recover the very best that she could. And I spent a lot of time at her bedside, helping her and listening to stories and having her really coach me. At that time, imagine, we're talking back into the early 70s when someone was diagnosed with breast cancer. To some degree, that was life-threatening, meaning that there was no opportunity for recovery. But Mom was a woman of faith, and she simply said, I'm going to live out my life every day until the good Lord takes me. So that's what that woman did with all of the tenacity that she had in her. And every breath was really devoted to our family. It was always like that, but you really got an opportunity to see it. And becoming an adult later and looking back on it, by the way, I should clarify, I had a great relationship with my dad, so there was no problem. It's just that intensity of working with my mom really, helped me. Prior to her operation, like, she taught me to write a check. I know most people listening probably don't even know what checks are anymore. So
I remember, Dr.
but
Troy, before you get to that, there's something I'd like to ask about. I mean, how old were you when you were looking after your mum so closely?
well, I was 12 years old.
Well, and it must have been a very powerful emotion or situation for you to have to deal with at that age. How did it affect your influence, your thinking, and so on?
Well, I think that what I began to recognize, and as I continue to evolve myself through my own leadership acumen and skill sets and things, is to understand that to some degree I have the opportunity to compartmentalize. So, which really means that I don't necessarily get involved in the emotion at the moment. Most of that emotion will hit me later. And so in the moment, in the crises, in the event, I'm on and able to work through that. Of course, I mean, there was a lot of feelings that my mom wouldn't be there anymore, so celebrating every day that she was still alive, every day that she was there, that she could talk to me and that I could talk to her, was a victory. It was something that we look forward to. And then the time I could spend with my dad as well, helping him to understand what we were processing with mom during that time. But mom, she was so smart because she prepped me for this. She taught me how to write a check. She taught me how to grocery shop, how to clean the house. All this was in preparation before the surgery. She actually put the surgery off for 3 or 4 months until the school was out so that I could be prepared and be able to do the best job possible. That's the type of leader that mom was. And
she certainly was. I mean, extremely impressive that she was able to maintain that state of mind, that frame of mind,
yes,
so organized and actually, as you say, led the situation such that you were in the best possible place to deal with it. Tell us what happened with your mum's operation.
So with that, mom did survive 43 years beyond that awful summer. She lived till she was 85, but during those final 6 or 7 years, she was stricken with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And as a result, we were losing her memory. She was losing her memory and had no recollection of who we were. And so with that being said, my mom's nickname was Fanny, and there's a little story behind that, but we'll save that for another time. But her name was Fanny, and so I decided that I would write a book. I'd written the first book in 2019 called Cohesion Culture, and that's because of my background. I have a PhD in global leadership and entrepreneurship. My dissertation was in group dynamics with an emphasis on cohesion, and everyone that I consulted with said, hey, your first book is what you'll be known for. So I wrote that first book because it was establishing my authority within the sphere of leadership and culture and working with organizations and with people. And then the second book was a little more personal to let people really know who I am. And so the book is titled Fanny Rules, A Mother's Leadership Lessons That Never Grow Old. And in it, I created there were 9 lessons that I felt my mom taught me, and I wrapped it around 31 stories. And these would be the memories that I would be able to share of my life and my encounter with my mom. And it would be great for my children and my grandchildren who may not necessarily have had that same opportunity to know the strength of this woman who had nothing more than a high school education, but a very strong faith. My mom taught me things like, she would say, your character is defined by the choices you make, not the circumstances you find yourself in. We were poor by circumstance. She said, I had cancer by circumstance. She said, but you can be whoever you want by choice. She said, you're not stuck here in this town. You don't have to stay here. You can explore the world. You can figure this out. You can move forward. And she wanted to make sure from that moment forward that I never felt that she was dependent upon me to survive. And
Right.
so she was very independent in that way, and to some degree, like a mother bird kicking me out of the nest. And at 18, when I went off to college, I basically never moved back home, but always stayed in very close connection with my
Right.
family.
Dr.
And
Troy,
then,
can I pause you there for a second? I mean, it's a
yeah,
really fascinating story, and it's a beautiful beginning to your leadership journey. But here you are in a town with no railway, right? You're the
yes.
only sibling. Your mum's recovering from cancer. Your dad's hard at work. And what was it that made you want to go to university? What was the drive and the motivation for you to say to yourself, "Yeah, I want to go to university and I want to get myself an education"?
Well, at that time, much of the conversation for your success or development was really based around education. And so, from the high school, when I went to, obviously, finishing up through high school, I, for me, I had, and I know it sounds terrible. I have to put my humility button on pause for a moment for people to hear this, but I have a good IQ. And so as a result, education came very easy to me. Learning things was very quick. I was very quick to understand and internalize information. I didn't have to spend a lot of time reading. I could read something one time and get it and move on with it. So I think it was just a natural sort of flow. And because my mom constantly encouraged, my dad encouraged me to say that I could break out of that small town that we were in, I just tended to pursue that. And then, of
Right.
course, being in high school, if you are favored academically, you get a little more support from some of your teachers to help guide you and direct you. So I had that type of influence, and I tended to follow that. And because of the situation we were in, I basically ended up getting scholarships for my first 2 years of school. So, and I did a work program while I was there to continue to supplement and support, knowing that I had no idea how long the support was going to happen for school, for being able to afford it. So that
Well,
was
that's
it.
a
So,
very, very
yeah,
mature way, actually, at that young age. Because how old were you when you went to university? 17, 18?
yeah, 18.
18. So your money management, if you like, was already, that machine was already on and running. And planning ahead for how did you decide what you wanted to study there?
Interestingly enough, I was very drawn to the theater. So I had started really pursuing a theater degree, thinking that that was something that I wanted to do. And it was maybe 2 years into the program, I realized I may love theater, but I may not be as good at it as I thought I was. Now, today, I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of presentations. So I think that that was great because I had all this background that can kind of help me in that area. Not, part of the success of leadership sometimes is your ability to convey your story and to be able to tell a story. And I have this ability to take complex information and drill it down very simply for people, which is why I think it worked for me in my field as I continue to experience leadership and advancement in that area.
And
And so then I
sorry,
changed it
I
to
will need to keep
business.
interrupting you sometimes, Dr. Troy, because there are things that I don't want to lose. Some gems that I want to pick up on. So, I mean, you talk about your ability to create a story, and I think everyone watching this will say, yeah, well, we can vouch for that, because you've created such a beautiful picture and a beautiful story right now that already we're engaged with where you're coming from and the drives that you had at such a young age. And as you say, it's critically important for connecting, the ability to communicate through storytelling. Would you agree?
Absolutely, would agree.
Mm.
And so I decided from there that business would be more likely for me. And also the other thing too is doing the theater would have required me to have then moved to a much larger city. Somewhere New York City would have been the ideal place. But at the time I was smitten by my high school sweetheart, and we were still in a romantic relationship. And I felt that I think I would much rather have the applause of the family than to worry about the applause of an audience, and changed it to business. And then eventually married my high school sweetheart that we have been together now for over 50 years.
Good Lord. Well, congratulations to you both. I mean,
Thank you.
that's an achievement as well, is it not? I wanted, I mean, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned the books and you mentioned Cohesion culture. Let's start with Cohesion culture, and I definitely want to get back to the books later on. What is Cohesion culture?
So Cohesion culture is just the brand name that we use for our programs that we present to our clients. And it's about infusing cohesion into the culture. So we don't go into an organization and change their culture, we amplify it. And we use cohesion. Cohesion is a causal phenomenon, and it really operates around three strategic elements. They're the element of belonging, which comes full circle when inclusion is part of it. It is value, which is our meaningful work. Do we have purpose? Do we understand what we're doing? And lastly, it's commitment. And it's mutual commitment, which typically shows up in organizations in the form of collaboration where need and trust exist. So looking at those three strategic elements, we guide leaders through our coaching, through our training, through our interactions, even through our strategic work that we do with organizations, all around those elements.
Right.
And we
again, I need to cut in here. Now,
yes.
It sounds like a very comprehensive program of coaching and so on. But what made you identify the gap that existed, where you said, hang on a second, what we actually need to do is produce cohesion culture? What was it that struck you, that made you think about that?
It was my PhD. So it really, through my MBA, understanding that my MBA basically focused on, behavioral science, organizational, the science behind organizations and how they're organized, and then continued through the PhD work. And, my dissertation was in group dynamics, because always about the relationship. You really hit that very importantly when you talked about my relationship with my parents, my mom, with others, that the success of storytelling comes through the relationship. But I wanted a structure. And so when I did my literature review, what I noticed and recognized is that in organizations, there was a lot of work that was driven around acquisition of employees or of training for employees. But very little was really focused on culture itself, that item within the company. We said, we'd like to make sure that you have a good culture, but I wasn't really sure there was a process or that there was a formula for it. So through the research, and when we were able to isolate those elements and really understand that cohesion is a causal phenomenon. And it's important for listeners to hear this portion, and that is, you use correlation to forecast. So I'm not telling you you'll never use forecasting again, but if you really want to change behavior, you need a causal phenomenon to change behavior and to be able to create structure for that. And that's what cohesion does.
Understood. So what's causal phenomenon? Is that a problem?
Yes, causal means that's cause and effect. When cohesion is present within an organization, when an individual feels that they are cohesively connected to people around them, to the organization, they will perform at an extremely high level. Not only will they perform at that high level, but they will exhibit exactly what companies want, and that is engaged employees. And the four characteristics of these engaged employees, meaning they are helpful without having been told or asked. They are active in problem solving. They are vested in their success and the organization's success. And lastly, they're eager to learn, grow, and develop.
Okay, now that all sounds very sensible and, falls together in my mind. But here's the thing, you have an organization which already has an existing culture. People have been employed in a particular way. The leaders of that organization have influenced the culture in a particular way. Employees expect certain behaviors from leaders because that's the culture they joined, and they expect. So what is it that makes someone come along to you and say, hang on, I don't feel there's enough cohesion? What are the indicators?
So for the most part, what we find is that those organizations who do really well, they love our program. Those individuals who feel that their culture is already 100% in place are the ones that need us the most and the ones who use us the least. So what we find is that an organization who has a mind to grow and a mind that wants their individuals, like they have a growth mindset. When you recognize a growth mindset within the leadership conversation, within how they want their individual employees to be the very best that they can be, and we're talking about just general leadership. We're not talking about creating succession planning. Well, I mean, we can, but we're not talking about that fundamentally. It's just that I want to do a good job. And organizations who want their employees to do the very best job, they're concerned about the way they interact with their consumers, the way they interact. They have scoring mechanisms, such as there's in the United States, we use something called Net Promoter Score, which is an opportunity to rate how an organization will interact with the consumer base that it has. And so those mechanisms, those scorings of those mechanisms, when they say, yes, we need a lift, we want to take this to the next level, that's the type of organization that typically reaches out to us, and those are the ones.
So the organization has identified a challenge.
Yes.
Let's say, for example, the way in which it connects with its customers or its clients, and a leader from that organization or group of leaders will reach out to you and say, hey, come and help us fix it, Dr. Troy. Is that how it works?
Well, it is, but in their mind, it's not fixing. And so that's the really good news to talk about it. It's called infusion. So what we're doing is amplifying it. So we start to make sure that the organization has good core values. So those organizations that may be doing well, they may not have very strong core values. It doesn't mean they don't have them, but they haven't strengthened them. So for instance, they may have said, here's my core value of integrity. This is what it means. Now we're done. But we work with organizations to take it to the next level. So you need to understand what this core value, not only the definition of integrity, but we need to know what are your belief systems that are wrapped around it. What are the attitudes that you may have if there are cultural similarities and differences, because organizations today are filled with people from different cultures. And even individuals within the same culture do not always see things exactly the same way. So you need to make sure you're addressing it. But most importantly, from all of that, you need to define the behaviors. What are the observable behaviors of that core value will you expect your employees to follow? So instead of just saying, hey, integrity is for you doing the right thing, which is typically what we hear, oh, integrity, do the right thing. We come to question and go, well, what is the right thing? How do I know what the right thing is? When I'm working with organizations in Kenya, in other parts of Africa, they have very different beliefs and very different attitudes towards some of the things that we think of in the United States as very natural. So it's real important to understand the baseline of that culture. And again, because my PhD is in global leadership and entrepreneurship, I have the opportunity to really understand more of what is going on within the cultural aspects of that area. Understood. Not only the culture of the company, but the culture of the surrounding area. And that has been very helpful in our interactions with our global clients.
I'm certain I do want to talk about the influence of national culture, if you like, on organizations. But before we get there, okay, I understand it from the leadership or the leader's perspective. But here you have, I know X number of employees. They have expectations, they're familiar with a particular culture, and suddenly you come along and you say, we're going to amplify this culture, we're going to improve cohesion. What's the typical response you get? What if, you come across somebody who says, well, yeah, that's all well, well and good, but really the only reason I'm here is because I want to put bread on the table, and that's it, and I'm happy with my input. I mean, how do you deal with something like that, or that kind of situation?
So really interesting the way you phrased that and asked that. So when we first started our program, we actually thought we would be able to go to organizations and say, let's make your culture a cohesion culture. And do you know that it was crickets? No, people did not listen to this at all because they have already vested a lot of energy into their culture. And the other thing I've also recognized is this: it's kind of like in a family situation. You may have a family member that's really not the best family member. You're not sure you really like this person a whole lot, but they're part of the family, so you kind of have to go along with it. You have to tolerate them, and you will do that. And so you may even talk about them a little bit when they're not in the room. Okay, so this is how people sometimes are thinking about their culture. It's not really the best. I'm not really sure I like it. We talk bad about it, but as soon as somebody starts to attack it, or starts to say, you've got, your culture sucks, your culture is horrible, your culture needs some help, they defend it. So I recognize the human behavior around it. And so when our conversation switched to where we said, let's amplify your culture. Let's not take it to the bare bones, because organizations have spent time, effort, and energy. And many of these companies we're working with, they don't have horrible cultures. Again, the more toxic culture are the people who are not asking us for help because they think they already have it done or they don't care. So in dealing with someone who already feels that they have a okay structure, we don't want to tear it down to the bones and start over. We simply want to add to it. And we position it very similar to the way it is when you want to enhance your product. You don't change the whole product, you enhance the product. You add a new feature, you add something new to it, you maybe put a little spin on it a little differently. Maybe you new and improve it, put it in a new box, shine it up a little bit, but you don't start over. So that concept of recognizing in organizational behavior that leaders will enhance what they do is much more important, and that conversation was much better and well received. So that's how we changed the whole nature of what we did.
So when you're going through this process with an organization, and of course I'm conscious of the fact that it depends on the size of the organization, the age of the organization, but typically how long would you expect it to take before you saw changes in the way that people engage with one another, with the cohesiveness, if you like, and how long after that was that translated into tangible results for the organization?
So we typically tell an individual through an engagement that you could expect 12 to 18 months, but you can see, and we have had organizations see, significant improvement in 6 months. And what we do is we take a baseline of productivity before we introduce the elements of cohesion, the training, the coaching that we offer to the organization. And then we do another baseline after 12 months to see the progress. And we're able to isolate those employees who were part of the culture to begin with separately from the new employees who are joining over the year, who don't have all of the history, the background, the baggage that comes along with it, to be able to see how they are interpreting the information that we're providing. And what we know is that if the CEO, and this is the other element that we didn't discuss, but if the CEO is not on board, we don't work with the organization, because the CEO makes all the difference. The CEO leads the executive team. It has the connection between the board. The CEO is the one that really truly authors the organizational direction that the company is taking. If the CEO does not believe, if the CEO has this philosophy that says, hey, look, you just have a job, you should be grateful that you have a job, you need to get in here and work, then that's not somebody who is going to be open to our ideas, because they already have a very closed mind. Something that we refer to as ethnocentric thinking. Easy for me to say. Ethnocentric thinking.
That doesn't surprise me at all that you have that approach, because it's looking at it from the other side of the coin as well. In terms of the employees, they're also looking for leadership, and if they can, and they can tell if the CEO is not engaged by this, not really committed to it, and it's not going to change the way they think and behave either.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, how does you're Talent Retention Expert of the Year, which is a very impressive title, Dr. Troy. I assume this is that you're managing through Cohesion culture to improve talent retention in the organization, or am I getting it wrong?
No, that is correct. And so one of the things we look at is, instead of looking at attrition, we look at retention. So sometimes it's just the flipping of the switch. When we work with an organization, we don't try to reinvent their systems. We try to work with the systems they have. So if you already are creating a retention, or an attrition metric and measurement, we just ask you to flip it. So instead of saying that you are losing 5% of your employees every year, we say you're retaining 95% of your employees, and then look at what that would be to move it to 96. There's something mentally about looking at a number from a positive perspective that has so much more value. It's just a mind shift is really what it is, and then it becomes more of a growth mind shift. Sometimes when we're thinking and working with leaders who look at an attrition number, they are looking at the loss. And so what we want to focus on is the gain. And then also looking at organizations and understanding that there are some positions that are going to be turnover positions. The organization's never going to be able to keep a person in there for a long period of time. And it's not because the people don't want to stay, but the way they've designed the position, it maybe is more attuned to individuals who are just starting. And once you grow
would you suggest in that, sorry again to interrupt, but would you suggest under those circumstances to the organization that they need to restructure the way that they operate? In other words, get people in there long enough for them to feel a part of the whole organizational system and therefore contribute more to that culture?
Yeah, so what we look for is to say, are you happy with the kind of turnover that you're having at this ground level? Because if you're starting to see a lot of turnover in your more experienced employees and your management, then you know you have definitely a big cultural problem, because people do not quit companies, they quit supervisors, they quit people. Now, what happens in some organizations, these baseline positions are being used as a placeholder for upward mobility. So once the individual becomes a little more experienced, they may expand and move on. So we have to do an analysis to determine, are you happy with the turnover that you're having in that position? If you want people to stay longer than a year or 18 months, what would you need to do to make that happen? And then let's measure for that to see what that would take. And the individuals we work with, and again, in these companies, because they are already geared to wanting to make a difference, they're smart. They do understand their information, and they're willing to learn. They're what we refer to be as teachable. So there are 7 attributes of an effective leader of Cohesion, and the first one is being teachable. If we can recognize that the leadership is teachable within the organization, then the other 6 attributes all fall in line.
Right. Okay. So now this is fascinating. So because I'm putting myself in the shoes of the leader of a company who's got a challenge with this company. His people are leaving, or they're not working as closely together as perhaps you'd like them to, and so on. So what are the symptoms of that kind of culture that should make them say, I know someone who can help me, Dr. Troy?
Well, first of all, he would see tenured employees leaving. He would see that there would be a lack of productivity. There would be an increased number of errors that would be happening within their production or whatever their line is. He would see that individuals within the organization would be missing critical deadlines. He might even see, or she might even see, depending upon with the nature of the leader, that there would be some poor scores in the relationship of the consumer to the organization. And if they're also doing employee communications between employees. So really, Cohesion works for employee to employee as well as it does from company to the outside consumer. We look at it holistically, and those would be some of the indicators that things would not be going well.
Now, you see, a typical leader, given the circumstances you've just laid out, would say, okay, well, either this person is no good, he or she doesn't have the skill or the ability, so let's find somebody else, or let's train them up. I'm sure that, we send them off on a training course and they'll be fine afterwards. Or maybe there's something wrong with the system itself, the machines or the equipment or the information flows or something else. What is going to make them think, well, maybe it's about the person, not the system?
Well, we obviously systems can be tested and determined, and if you're getting information from them, how are you using them? But our programs always begin with the executive team, the middle management, and then the individual contributors. So we identify those three levels within the company. And the reason for that is if a leader tells me, oh, you have a problem, we have a problem with this person, I then look at the supervisor and see, is there a problem with the supervisor? Because oftentimes that relationship is so important that if it's not taken care of, if it's not nurtured, if it's not fed, then that's where the disconnect comes in. And so to help those leaders, we make sure that they are doing the coaching. So it's not just training like, oh, here's information, knowledge, academic knowledge. It's practical application. So when we work with an organization and we do our training, what makes our stuff different than most other companies, we have no trust falls, no rope courses, and no death by PowerPoint. What we do is we create these hands-on, these experiential activities that relate to your real-world problems that you have, but you have to solve something. You have to work together to do that. And through those activities, we are able to emphasize the importance of the strategic elements of cohesion. We're able to emphasize that belonging is not enough. The fact that you get a sense that I belong is a good start, but until you are included, you don't get the full value of belonging.
Understood.
And part of this is, and if we just think for a second, like some of the science behind it, it's Maslow's theory of hierarchy coming out right before our very eyes. If an individual feels that their psychological safety and their psychological well-being or their physical safety or well-being is challenged, individuals never move to the state of belonging, self-esteem, or self-actualization. And what leaders want is employees operating in self-actualization. So with that, you have to take away any of that fear, any of that area that keeps them from being able to move to the next level. And one of the ways to do that is when an employee feels included, the meaning that the leader is asking questions, gaining feedback. They are the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are doing they're the individual contributors. They're doing most of the day-to-day work. And if the leader is not interacting with them and figuring out what they know, what they see, how they understand, that's the first step in having an employee feel that they are included. The second step is communication. They need to have communication within the company.
Again, I need to pause you there, Dr. Troy. So, because this is really important, because you talk about there's no death by PowerPoint, and that's an idea that I subscribe to wholeheartedly. I think that it's critical that when we work with leaders, we give something that actually changes behaviors and produces results, and that's not going to happen with a PowerPoint presentation. So if there's a leader watching this right now, and they'll say, okay, well, I know there's something wrong, and what Dr. Troy is saying is making perfect sense. What's the first or second practical thing that I could do to start to improve my situation? Before I call Dr. Troy in, because he may not be able to come next week the way I'd like it. So what advice would you give to somebody in that position?
The core values. Core values create the foundation of which the culture is built from. So what we know is values create, and from our values stem our belief system. What we believe is influenced by our values. It's something that's called the attribution or the implication theory, that we create values in our life based on our experiences and our interaction and making sense of the world around us. So organizations have a responsibility of creating that environment, saying this is what our culture is. And so these values that they will identify are very important. But recognizing the beliefs, because to get to behaviors, it's values, beliefs, attitudes, they all manifest to behaviors. And what you want the organization to do is to focus on the behavior of the core value. Don't just keep telling somebody have integrity, have integrity, have integrity. What you need to do is to say our integrity is that there are no lies, there's no half-truths, there's no omissions. We do something that is morally, ethically, and legally right. So if you want to know what's the right thing to do, if it questions your morality, if it questions your legality, if you have a question of whether it's going to harm you or yourself, then you stop and figure it out before you take the next step. So those are just some practical things that we can provide that helps an organization move forward before we even get started. We ask them to do that kind of background work. You don't focus just on a mission or a vision. We ask you, what is your purpose? Have you defined your purpose? Your purpose is not, mission and vision is great, but to me, that's an old school sort of view. What we look at today is your purpose. What is it that you're doing? So for instance, when we work within the credit union movement in the US and globally, their credit union movement basically has boiled down to having one real purpose, and that is to improve the financial conditions of the people's lives they interact with. So when you know what your purpose is, all of a sudden you're giving meaning now, which is going to contribute to the value aspect of cohesion. So without you even knowing it, you're going to be contributing to the fact that my job is meaningful and purposeful, and I understand my job. So we also ask organizations, make sure people understand the jobs, and have you actually given them the correct jobs to do? Do you have people in the right jobs? Identify some of that so they can be working on those things before we even come in and help them.
Understood. That's brilliant. But I'm going to keep playing devil's advocate here, Dr. Troy. It takes a lot of bravery, for someone on the factory floor to say, well, you know what, I'm not particularly happy with the way that this organization is run, or the way my supervisor treats me, or the way this job is working. But I'm scared of saying anything because, well, I might lose my job tomorrow. So it does take some inner fortitude, does it not?
It does. And so that's why we didn't start there. When I gave that suggestion of interacting, that is a more mature viewpoint within the culture of gaining that side of feedback. But in the meantime, you can put in anonymous. Most organizations have what they might refer to as a whistleblower program. So they can modify that whistleblower to suggestions where individuals can offer those suggestions to the organization and do so and feel that the individual can feel that there's no fear. Because again, if the individual has the fear, like you expressed, they're not going to self-actualize, meaning they're not going to contribute, they're not going to give to it. And it takes time in an organization. And the thing that we recognize is just because the supervisor went through a program doesn't mean they're going to change their behavior. That's why coaching is important. Every program we do offers a level of coaching. We either teach the organization how to coach, or they hire us to come in and do some coaching. So we don't want to do a program with an individual where it's a one and done. We don't want to just say, hey, let's show up, do a training, and everybody now is going to be kumbaya and do their s'mores around the fire pit. What we need to say is there has to be work, and there has to be a rigor, there has to be intentionality. There's a difference between having good intentions and having intentionality. Good intentions is bringing in a company and saying, hey, train some folks. Intentionality is saying, stay and train them and coach them. That's intentionality. And so really it's helpful to really make sure that we understand the distinction between those as we're working with leaders. And for me, I'm very straightforward. I'll call that stuff out. I'll simply, I'll say, if this is what you do, then we are right for you. If you don't do this or don't want this, then you don't want us, because you're going to be dissatisfied, because you're going to want to cram us into your program that is already broken. What we're going to be doing is helping you take that program and enhance it. So something is wrong with it. It's not so much, like I said, I don't necessarily want it to be that we're fixing it, but what we're doing is enhancing it. And we're amplifying it, because we're really giving very clear direction. But here's the great thing about the direction. When I say to you, make sure that your employees feel included, make sure that the work they're doing is meaningful, and make sure that you need and trust them through collaboration. What do you do is now up to you and your relationship with the work you're doing. We don't offer, we can offer some ideas because we've worked with a number of companies, so we've got some suggestions, but for the most part, you get to customize it yourself. That's the beauty of the program we do.
And it wouldn't work. And it wouldn't work if it didn't come from within the organization.
That's right.
And the person. very difficult to overlay your cohesion culture program on an organization that wasn't committed to it. I want to touch now, Dr. Troy, on the international aspect, because you mentioned earlier that different organizations in different countries have different concepts of various principles of cohesion culture. How do you deal with that?
So typically when we're working with an international company, it's because they want to know the Western world. They want to know how we do it in the U.S. So already we have now an opening that they are willing to listen to the way we're doing it. And during the sessions, we have a lot of table discussion to say, this is the principle that we engage in that has been successful with the organizations we work with. How would that work for you? So so they are contributing and participating. We're not coming in as though we are an authoritative sort of posture where we come in and say, based on your culture, you need to do this, you need to do this. No, we want to engage and say, how does your interpretation of your culture interact with what we're telling you, with what we're showing you, so that we can determine, and realistically, we look at Hofstede's the 5 powers, 5 distinctions that he has within a culture, and really are looking to see what is the egalitarianism. So for instance, how do they treat women within the organization? How do they look at youth? What is the power distance between the leader and the individuals? Like, we know some background. If we're working with an Asian company, we know, for instance, that there is a lot of hierarchical put on the leader. The leader has the most control, and employees will not speak up in organizations. So if they want that to happen, then we have to teach them some ways. We have to help instruct them some ways, but they also have to change their behavior. And it may often take a little bit of time to do that because they've been so ingrained in the way they've done it. Just to give you an example, working with a group in Africa. So this individual that I'm working with is a strong leader within a community, politician, big owner, very well respected. And we're in a table discussion, and there are 4 men and a woman in the session. And he is the most experienced individual in the group. He has the most authority. And so when we're actually having a conversation, he looks over at the woman and says, "Would you take notes?" Now you have to imagine, and we're not talking that this is not 30 years ago. This is as of 5-6 years ago, when there a lot was changing. I mean, the women's movement and women's power within an organization and being able to bring that forward. And yet he took it back 50 years by asking her if she would take the notes. Now, here's the thing about the culture. She respected him to the point where she took the notes. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with him privately that, and again, there's a little way that you have this conversation. You just don't come out bluntly with it. There's a technique to the conversation to avoid conflict. It's something that we teach, but I don't have enough time to go into it. But I basically produced a conversation with him that helped him understand, and the action that he took was come back to the group and apologize to her in front of the group. Reset the culture, reset the communication within that team because of how he viewed it, and just really recognizing, and that is an emotional intelligence moment, when he can recognize and be self-aware of his own emotions and his own behavior, and then make a change that he wants to author and change. That's where the dynamics is, and that's where you'll see the change within organizations.
Yeah, wonderful story, actually. And also I was thinking, that's going to make a fundamental change amongst everyone sitting around the table, not just the 2 people involved directly, isn't it? So going forward, they'll be able to cascade that down into the culture of the organization as a whole. Would that work like that?
It does. And here's the great thing. When we set up table conversations, we can use that scenario without the outcome. We set up the scenario and then have a table discussion. What would we do? Well, how would you handle that within your organization? If you were involved in a meeting and this sort of thing happened, where the individual who had the most authority really created what we would refer to as sort of a demeaning structure, a way that wasn't respecting and bringing everyone to the level of where they were. It's different if that person's role was the assistant to the CEO and their job was to coordinate and to take notes and to do that. That was their natural part of their job, and everyone understood that. That's a different conversation. But when you're in a group of leaders, and even though this individual was not as seasoned or had the same authority to speak to them in that manner, then that's a good conversation to have, and then figure out how do you get out of it. Once you recognize that you've done that, what are the things that you do to mitigate that sort of negative impact that situation may have? And then recover your respect, because not only did you lose respect, did he lose respect with the individual that he was speaking to, but to those of us who are watching and seeing, we're like, oh my gosh, where did all of this great education go? All of these great things when he talked about how, people needed to be respected and how important that was to culture and to do that. And then to turn around in the same meeting and ask her to take notes was such a contradiction. And that's something that we look for in the coaching. We listen for the contradictions of where individuals are good at speaking, but not good at doing.
Yeah, which is very very common. Sad to say. I mean, I'm a coach too, and that resonates completely with me. Now, we've only got a few minutes left, unfortunately, Dr. Troy, but I do want to come back to your book. So I'd like to start with the book that you wrote about the lessons that your mother taught you.
Sure. So just to provide for listeners who may want to think about a literary career and what that may look like. So just remember, the very first book you write is going to be more about who you are going to be in the marketplace, whether you're writing for fun or whether you're writing for business. So that was Cohesion Culture. The second book has to do with letting people inside. If you're in leadership, they want to know how they want to know you. They want to know more about you, because leadership is about relationship. I needed people to hear the story of my mom and dad. I needed them to understand that I did not come from favor. If you consider today my accomplishments, over 70 countries, 6 continents, doing business around the globe, being an international speaker, multiple bestseller, that did not happen because I was with a family of favor. That happened because I was with a family of intentionality to help me break out of the mold and to realize that. So I did that book. I also partnered with another group to create an international book that was world leaders being brought together, and I wanted to have a voice within that. Because my degree is global, I needed to have global interaction. I can't just have an academic global degree and only stick to the US or to my state or locality. I needed to ensure that I was putting it to use. So I got involved in that. Then I partnered with my actual partner today, my business partner, Benjamin Toy, and I wrote another book called Becoming a Cohesive Leader. What we recognized is that 71% of employees today want growth, development, and advancement, but 59% of them in a company aren't getting it. So we said we need a product to help those individuals who don't have these great company leaders who want to change and make sure that they are developed. And so we give them this program. And then lastly,
so this is something that an individual who feels something is missing can come to you. It's not just
they can, which is really awesome to be able to do it. And so all of our programs not only have a book attached to it, so that there's real background research, good solid information that they can read and interpret on their own, but we also provide an online program. And we also provide a community where individuals can be together in the community. We will also offer what we call cohort coaching. From time to time, we'll offer it up. People may refer to it as a mastermind, where you've been engaged in the material and you want to talk more. We have a community space where individuals who have interacted with our material can connect with us. Once a week, we have a space that you can come into, and we'll be present in that space, and we'll interact with the individuals who are working with us. And this program that we're doing for individuals has been so successful that our corporate clients have said, can we have this for our employees too? And we're like, sure. There's a lot of selling in that course because we're selling to individuals, so we're upselling in the course. But as long as the client understands it, then that's great.
Right.
And then the last of the series that then I did another book with a colleague out of New York about burnout, because burnout is so important, and having this cohesive mindset can really address burnout. And then the last book that we just launched is called The Cohesive Sales Approach. And realistically, all of those books ended up becoming bestsellers. So we've done our research, we worked with individuals, we really put together material. So our cohesive group that we really present to organizations is cohesion culture, becoming a cohesive leader, and lastly, it is the cohesive sales approach.
So I mean, if someone wanted to find you, where's the best place to look for these books?
Well, it's so easy. It's drtroyhall.com. So it's drtroyhall.com. It's 10 letters and a .com. So it should be so easy to find. And the offer that I am making today is giving you free access to the Cohesion, to the Becoming a Cohesive Leader, which we refer to as the Cohesive Leader Academy. And that's the free link that you're going to be able to share and to see, so you can experience this program without spending any money, get an opportunity, take a look at it, decide if it's something you like, and if it is, then we move forward.
That's wonderful, a wonderful offer, and thank you for your generosity in offering it, Dr. Troy. I mean, absolutely fascinating. And I mean, there are so many threads to your story which you brought together beautifully, and one can hear and see the passion in your voice as you run through it. So goodness me, I don't know how you found the time, quite frankly, to join me today, because you've certainly got your hands very full, but I'm very glad that you did. And thank you for sharing your experience, because as I think I mentioned at an earlier conversation, my goal is to reach out to those leaders who are facing challenges but don't know where to go, or who feel that they're the only ones that are experiencing it, and they feel that maybe it's a sign that they need to improve themselves. But there are others in that position, and there are people who can support and guide them through those challenges, and you've certainly done all of that. So thank you again.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And what's so uplifting for me is the fact that you asked me to be a part of your project and your program, which I value the opportunity to contribute this work to your work and to be able to expand. For me, I subscribe to a very simple leadership theory that says that my job is to motivate, influence, and enable others to be successful. I motivate by stimulating, I influence by molding their thinking, and I enable them by giving them resources and removing barriers. That's the leadership principle, and it all falls under this transformative concept that says that I must focus on the needs of others before self. So for me, it was all about today making sure that I was providing to the need that you had, that I would be able to do that. And so I'm very grateful. And as I close out all of my Cohesion Culture programs and interviews with this very simple mantra, and that is, you don't have to know everything, you just need to be teachable.
Wonderful, wonderful quote to remember and to live by, Dr. Troy. Thank you again, and I'm sure we'll be speaking fairly soon. I certainly hope so.
That's great.
Take care now. Bye.